Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ain't Gonna Be No Stupid. I am here with another former student, Kerrie Ann.
Hi,
Hi, and
your
I had,
favorite former student.
yes, of course, my favorite. I used to have a stamp that says, "You're my favorite student," that would stamp on each kid's book, so everybody's
Really?
my favorite.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but Kerrie Ann I had as a freshman, and then again as a senior, and even as a freshman, she made an impression on me. She, because schools tends to beat out your opinion and make you sit there obedient. And I loved about Kerrie Ann is that she just had a spark in her still as a freshman and just spoke her mind. And then it's senior year when she was in my speech class, the speeches that she would do were so much deeper on a higher level of research than anybody I've ever known. So I'm so happy to have you as a guest, Kerrie Ann.
I'm super excited.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the title, Ain't Gonna Let Society Tell Me I Don't Have the Right to Be Here.
Hmm.
And before we get into the main dish, could we just talk about, we are going to talk about homosexuality, and my audience is very many Christians, and I'm going to challenge their thinking. I'm going to challenge the status quo here. But let me tell you one of my stories that relates to this.
Okay.
When I was in seventh grade, all my friends started to, now I had maturation lag. I literally was diagnosed with maturation lag, which just means I was delayed, emotionally delayed, and I didn't mature as fast.
Okay.
I probably still and it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of, I like that. I mean, it was a label that I don't think was really a real thing. Like, to me, I think it was a label that was just like made me go, what? What? Yeah,
Right.
I had
Yeah.
some hardship in my childhood, but does that mean you got to label me like that? So anyway, that's not even the story. But I remember in seventh grade, my friends, hormones. My friends all started getting boyfriends, and they were all pairing up, and I was like, I literally went home that day, and I didn't like I looked at the boys, they were all skinny or they had pimples, and I looked, I'm like, is this what it's like to be gay? And I literally had a day where I was like, what? But then the next day, or not the next day, the next week or two, I remember grabbing the boy with muscles. He still had acne, but I grabbed the boy with muscles, and then we made out on the bus. And then I don't know if I ever shared that story. He had an onion in his mouth, and it transferred to me. And I'm like, ew, is this how boys taste?
Oh
Ew.
my God.
So that was it. That was pretty much my little innocent story. But I know it's real when people do identify as gay. And I really want to talk about that and dive into that. But if you could share your cute little innocent story that you had about the thermos.
Okay. I think I was like in second or third grade. I live by this park. Um, and it was like, I think it was like winter, so it was dark around like 4 or 5. And me and my friends, we were all playing at the park, but we got really cold, but we still wanted to like play and stuff. So I came home and I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, can I borrow your thermos? And it was this huge thermos, and I put like soup in it, or I think it was like either soup or hot chocolate or something. And he's like, at first he said no, because he's like, you're gonna lose it. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna lose it. I promise. I know you need it for work. And he's like, okay, but you better bring it back. Well, oh my God, I'm sorry, my cat is trying to get on here.
Let her
Um,
come. Let her see. I want to meet her.
um, so I go to the park and I put it on one of the benches, and my mom comes to pick me up, and so I run to the car and I'm super excited and telling her about my day, and I get home and I'm like, I forgot the thermos, and I started crying.
Oh.
I started crying, and my mom's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I forgot Dad's thermos. And he's like, she's like, it's okay, we can go back and find it. So we go back and find it. It was probably like 10 minutes later, and it wasn't there anymore. So when I got in the car, in my head, this thermos had a sad face, like a cartoon sad face, and it was crying. And so I did that a lot with inanimate objects. Like, I became emotionally like pulled to things that are not considered not real, but aren't important.
Yes.
And I think that I brought that into my, going into my adult life.
Yes.
And that is something I feel a lot of people have a problem with, where my thermos is people's cars, people's money, people's things that my mom used to have a quote, things that are things aren't real, or something like that.
Yes.
Um
That's funny you mentioned all that materialism, because my next guest is all about minimalism. And we were talking
Yeah.
about like stuff doesn't make us happy. But you also just said very similar to me. I don't know if it's just our empathy gift or, but I have that same thing with the inanimate object. And I told other stories in season 1 about my inanimate object craze, but that was
Yeah.
so cute that you thought the thermos was sad because he lost his home. Oh my
I
gosh.
know. And when like I tell like, because that was like a funny story, because at the time, like I told my friends what was happening and they were kind of like, okay, I don't know how to respond, I'm just gonna let her cry. And so now when I talk to my friends about it, like they find it like really funny, but when I like think about it as like that, like going back in time and putting myself in that position again, it was real. Like
I
it was
know.
a problem.
I know. Okay, let's move into the stupid situationship. And I'll tell you, I don't know confirmed by fact that I dated or was in a relationship with a guy who was a closeted gay man. But I did write about it in my book. And there was a line in the book that I said, I am so grateful for homosexuals that are out of the closet because it's pretty painful to be in a relationship with somebody that really doesn't want to be with you, right?
Hmm.
So the publisher told me, the editor told me, they said, be careful, this is a Christian publication, be careful what you say. So I took that line out. And I feel regretful now that I even took the line out because
Hmm.
that is the situationship. And I think I feel like I've been in other relationships that it wasn't the men, like I think there's a spectrum, right? I don't think it's like either you're hetero or you're homo and it's either one or the other. It's
Hmm.
like you're on the continuum, right? So I just look
Yeah.
back at other issues too that I've had through the years with people and I'm like, so that was my stupid situationship, but I've had many and I usually don't talk
Mhm.
about any, but I thought it really segued into yours with what happened at school.
For anybody who doesn't know the school, it's huge. It has a lot of people. And now to give you a little backstory, I am, from what I remember, I'm one of the first people like in my friend group or in my age, like at school, that was open, not only out of the closet, but very open and proud.
I
And
remember
I
that
yeah,
freshman
I've
year.
been
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Um and so, walking down the hall, you'd get those, faggot jokes or lesbian jokes or whatever. And it never bothered me. But there was one day where I was going to another class and I have always had a problem with the authority at that school when it came to PDA. Okay.
Public
You're
display of affection for those
yeah,
of you
when
that are.
you're a teenager and you're in love and all this stuff, whatever. Well, this one day I'm walking my girlfriend to like where we would meet before like we would go to class, and I give her a small kiss. It wasn't even like, oh my god, gross. Like kiss, walked away. I was not sitting there, but like standing there, being the hall monitor or whatever. And she says something to me, and I brush it off. I go to my next class, and I get pulled out of class to go down to the dean's office and talk to them. And she's talking to me, and she's like, I was told that you were showing, a public display of affection. You're not supposed to do that. She's like, we've had this conversation before. And I'm like, okay, but look, we're looking at the video footage, and I'm like, there are like 2 or 3 heterosexual couples doing the same exact thing, and she doesn't even notice it. And that's a big problem in today's society. No matter where you come from, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, you are most likely going to notice things that you don't see all that often. We see boys and girls kissing all the time. But that one moment where you see a girl and a girl kissing or a guy and a guy kissing, for anybody, and I will admit this, for anybody, it's, kind of like a shock, I
Mhm.
guess, because you don't see that all the time. It's not out there like that. And so that situation kind of brought me into like speaking up for a lot of people,
Mm.
because yeah, I know the like surface problem was the public display of affection, but I've always had a problem with that school for standing up for me, for other people in my community, for them standing up for them. But when it comes to the people who are bullying us and picking on us, they get a slap on the wrist, and it's terrible.
Yeah, this is where I want to address this, because this whole idea that, first of all, I have a lot of Christian audience, I believe. And even if I don't, I still think this will speak to anybody. But the first commandment, and the most major one, is to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as thyself. And I try to roll that way, and I look at Jesus as a model for that. And so I really wanted to dive into. And then I also did some research on the Levitical Law, and I'll read a bunch of these. This is crazy, just because I want it on record. Okay, this is the Levitical Law, and even Christians today don't follow it, but they will pull out homosexuality. Homosexuality does not show up on the Levitical Law, but let me just read some of them. Eating fat, eating blood, touching an unclean animal, carelessly making an oath, finding lost property and lying about it, letting your hair become unkempt, tearing your clothes, drinking alcohol in holy places. I've seen a lot of cake parties at Catholic churches. And I've been there. Eating an animal which doesn't chew, cut, or has divided hoof, touching the carcass of the above, rugby, football. Eating or touching a carcass of seafood without fins or scales. Going to church within 33 days after giving birth to a boy, going to church within 66 days of giving birth to a girl, having sex with your mother, your father's wife, your sister, your granddaughter, your half-sister, your biological aunt, your uncle's wife, your daughter-in-law, your sister-in-law. Now that is just part of what I have here, and I'll put the whole article in the notes. But if you look at the Greek translation, and everybody refers to Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible, right? If you look at the Greek translation and the context of the story, it talks more about gang rape that God is against, and sex with a man and a boy. So that would be pedophilia, right?
Yeah.
That is really what they're now translating into today's Bible as homosexuality. So the shame I know you're getting from society is because of their beliefs based on the translation that they're reading.
And if you really look at it, homosexuality wasn't a term until I think like the 1860s. The Bible has been around a lot longer than that.
Yes.
So it kind of just comes down to, not like in society, there are the higher people. It comes down to what the higher people wants us to see, wants us to hear, and who they want us to be. That's the way I think of it.
You think higher people that are in power?
Yeah.
Not that they're higher spiritually or higher in any way,
no,
right?
absolutely not. Because at the end of the day, my God, the God that I love, and I know that they love me, I wouldn't, if he or she didn't want me to be who I am, because if I was with a boy right now, if I had a boyfriend, if I was dating a boy all throughout high school, I would not be happy. I would not be happy. And that comes to another thing that people say is being gay is a choice. I've had this conversation with a family member before, and it comes down to when people think being gay is a choice, that means one day we woke up and said, "Oh, I want to be gay." And that, I feel like that's how they see it. And it's like, okay, well, reverse the sides. If I told you right now you have to kiss a woman and marry a woman and be okay with it, would you do it? No. Not because you are against the LGBT community. You just, that's just not how you roll.
Right.
And it's the same thing.
But I do appreciate the beauty of a woman. Like, I do appreciate, and I get what people are I get that. But at the same time, I wouldn't probably marry anyone at this point, just because I have commitment issues. But that's why I don't even get a tattoo, which is also on the Levitical Law too. Don't get a tattoo, but that's because of my commitment issues. It's not because of my religious beliefs. But you mentioned love, and you mentioned relationship with God and she or he, and I want to address that, because if we, as Christians, we believe it's God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, right? We believe it's all one. And if you really think about it, I heard a sermon once about how the Holy Spirit is like the feminine side of things. Like, if you put it all together as a Trinity, that God isn't just masculine, like the powers that be make God look out or paint the picture of who God is. God is we are created in his image. So if we're created in his image, and we use his because it's the pronoun that's just the quickest the one
Yeah.
that's the default pronoun on purpose, I'm sure. But again, we always say he, but he's a relational God. And I just want people who don't believe in God or don't know, like if 2020 didn't do anything for you, I just would hope it would stir your spirit to just want to get to know a God who's in control and that does not condemn, and that loves more than he condemns. Like, it's just so
Yeah.
not about our works. It's not anything we do is going to get us to heaven. He's going to judge our hearts. And this is why I love everyone that I come across. And you mentioned
Okay.
it earlier.
When I first started coming out, a lot of my, like, it was weird because it was more distant family, like my second, third cousin, whatever. They would comment like Bible verses, right? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I thought Christianity or even Catholicism, I was like, I thought that was such a loving religion. And so for the longest time, I'm like, okay, I associated hate
Yep.
with the Bible because that was the only time anybody wanted to use it against me, right? But then the more that I started actually researching my own things, I'm like, it's my relationship with whoever's up there. Kim got me this cross for my birthday. I was really, because for a while I was such a spiritual person, but like I was fine with that in my head, but I felt the only way that I can explain it, like my heart was like empty.
Yes.
Like, and I couldn't find something that could like help me like when I'm sad or help me just be okay with not knowing anything.
Truly.
And it's crazy. I'm still like figuring out a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
it's my relationship. I was like, if they want to, start burning bridges with whoever they look up to, that's on them.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna love them. I'm still gonna hope for the best for them, even if they don't hope the best for me.
You mentioned it earlier. Bless those who curse you, because I know you've been bullied. I know you've been called names, but in the Bible, and you didn't even know you're quoting it, you said, I'll love them. I wish them well. And bless those who curse you. I'm going to put that verse in the notes as well, because that's what's a big one. That's something that I'm dealing with even today. And to know how to do that. But
that's when it comes to just like, everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a purpose when they're here.
Yes.
And will we know what that is? I don't know. Probably, maybe. Probably not. I don't know. But you live once, the quote, you only live once. But in an actual serious matter, you have one time to do what you want to do. And, today may be amazing, maybe not, but it comes to how you want your day to look like, how you want your week to roll out, how you want your month to be, your year, no matter what time frame it is. That's up to you. Well, I feel what a lot of people who don't believe in God have a problem with, myself included, you remember I had a big problem with this, is God, when it comes down to it, God wants you to be ready. God wants you to believe in him, not because you believe you have to. For a while, when I thought of myself, am I a Christian? Am I a Catholic? Am I an atheist? Whatever. I could never fully be comfortable with a label as like Christianity or whatever.
Right.
But as time went on, I had situations come to me, and not that it was any different from what I've been through before, but my heart felt different. And the way that I looked at it was different. Like with things happening at home, or things like when it came to school, it was like, I still woke up this morning. I'm still breathing. I'm still here. And a lot of people can say, oh, okay, well, that's because of science. And anybody who knows me will say, I used to say that all the time. But if you do end up going down the path of God, you have to think of it as you will get there when you're ready. You have so many people saying, a lot of people said this to me, like, if you don't believe in God, if you're gay, if you're this or that, you are going to hell. And it's like that, you're contradicting that because you're judging me, you're pushing me away from the path to God. You will be going down there with me.
Exactly.
Like,
judgment will cause you to be judged, and judgment is not of God either. So he's the only one that judges. But also you said a couple things. Didn't you used to relate Christianity to hatred?
yeah.
And this is what I wanted to spell too, because that's all you see in the media. I think Christians come off as hateful people. And I just shake my head. I'm like, what are you doing? Is that going to bring, Jesus stands at the door and knocks, and you open it if you want, but he's just knocking. He ain't going to beat it down your head. You know, he really wants a relation with you. God wants a relation with you. And so that's really one. And then a second thing that you brought up too is purpose. And I know that you know this, when you provide value to other people's lives, which is funny because my next episode is about that, minimalism, and you're truly happy when you get rid of the stuff that you think makes you happy, and you learn to just go and provide value for people. It's in providing value for people, providing value for the world is what the true happiness comes when you live in your purpose. And I can help you. I can help you get some clarity on that. You know, I'm a life coach, but that's beside the point. That's
you'll forever be my teacher.
I know, that's so great. So let's talk about like some of the people, like maybe, if we can put a pin in it, what is it that you wanted to address in the main dish besides like what you've been dealing with in terms of being bullied, but also maybe we could talk about what would not be in this world without gay people. Like, I don't know, famous people that
well, speaking on that, I have a blog, and I think one of my first blog posts was in the month of June, but the month of June in general is Pride Month.
Oh, yes.
What a lot of people don't realize is with our whitewashed educational system, we're taught that the white man did this, the white man invented this, blah, blah, blah. But really it's the white man killed him, the white man stole that.
Yeah.
And the diversity in our country is really a lot of times overseen because we're not taught that. Yes. And for anybody who doesn't know, like Harvey Milk, you have a lot of people in the past that really set down the foundation for, you know, today's, you know, LGBT community.
Yeah.
And when you put a lot of this together, we as a community, we couldn't walk outside without like having the fear of being killed or being kidnapped or whatever. And now, like, a lot of people come back and say like, oh, we didn't have this in my day, or, you know, this community is a lot better now than it was before. And don't get me wrong, we've made a lot of progress as a community, but there's still a lot to go. Like our show of a presidency the last 4 years, that was constantly being tossed in the air. Is my community going to be able to adopt? And let's not even say my community. Am I going to be able to adopt? Am I going to be able to have a family? Am I going to be able to marry the person I love? And a lot of people have a problem with it because they feel like we're getting special treatment.
Yeah.
But that's our basic human right, is to be able to love, to be loved, to share that love with people. And if people just mind their own business,
that's exactly it.
It would be perfect.
Because, you know, I think a lot of the hatred comes too from those people that secretly are like addicted to porn, or secretly are attracted to the same sex.
That is actually very funny, because growing up, like I said, with being one of the first people out, I came out as early as 6th grade. And I think I was like 11 or 12. So, you know, you still have these, you know, preteens or whatever, thinking they're right about everything, thinking they're so cool. And, you know, speaking from like my point of view, like that was a big thing in my life, because it was something that had to do with, you know, the past, the present, and the future. So while I was dealing with that, I had all these people bully me and pick on me and try to throw me back in the closet. But
because of
Today,
for their lack of comfort. It's right. Okay, go ahead.
today, those people are gay.
Yes.
They have come out
Yes.
as some sort of gay.
Yes. The most resistance that you get from someone, you got to check what they're struggling with, right?
Yeah.
Because they're hiding. And that's why I appreciate being open, being free, being true to who you really are. How freeing is that? So you're like kind of like,
paved the way for a
you
lot
paved the way. Pioneer. You are a pioneer.
because right after I came out, I think 2 or 3 other people started coming out and started exploring
yes,
how they felt.
and in that, you know, you mentioned love as a teenager, and I said, what do you know about love as a teenager? And I'm starting to think, based on my scabs on my heart, I think you really have a lot of love as a teenager, more so because your heart hasn't been torn to pieces yet, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The whole phenomenon about, you know, you have your high school sweetheart, yada yada. You and I can't even speak on this a lot because I still consider like myself a child, but I remember being, you know, 15, 16 thinking like I know exactly how my life is going to go. I know as soon as I'm 18, I'm going to move out. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be on my own. You know, I don't have to listen to my parents. My parents are wrong, all this stuff. And, you know, at school, that's all what the teachers like tried to do. Like they tried setting us up for some type of good future. But, you know, you find someone and after that, it's like you said, our heart really hasn't gone through any damage yet. So our imagination is crazy. Like, I'm going to be with this person. We're going to get married. I don't have to be by myself. Like, I love this person with my whole heart. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you do find a love in high school, I feel it paves the way for the rest of your life because you find out a lot about yourself. You find out how far you let somebody take you. You know, what a lot of people don't realize is young relationships are really toxic.
They
really,
are.
really toxic because, like I said, you're really, really young. You have a lot of jealousy issues, and jealousy issues with other people and within yourself. So you think like, this person's not talking to me, they don't want to be with me anymore. They're talking to this person, they're starting to like them. You have a lot of insecurity issues. So even though like having a high school sweetheart is like amazing, I wish that like if I do ever have kids, like, and my parents tried warning me this, if I ever have kids, like, I want to be that person for them. If they feel like they're not okay, like in here, when they're with this other person or by themselves, that's when we kind of need to start thinking about things differently, because you do have a lot of people who are like, if I didn't have this person in my life, I wouldn't be who I am. And that's the whole like we were talking about earlier, you've never really been through anything and you feel what you're going through right now is what you're going to be going through the rest of your life.
Oh, right.
When a lot of the things I dealt with in high school, I don't care.
Nice.
I don't care that's behind me. That was in high school, but when you're in that moment, it's like it's the end of the world.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's funny you mentioned that too. Loyalty and love is the latest thing I've noticed. I heard this quote and I don't know who said it. Loyalty, I'd rather have loyalty than love, because, you know, love is fleeting, but loyalty is and that's why the whole relationship with God for me is like, I'm not alone, people. Everyone's like, oh, poor Amy, she's so single.
No, yeah.
I am not alone, and do not pity my single life, because when I'm in relationships, I notice when you mention toxic, it's like their stuff jumps on you, your stuff jumps on them, and then it's a mirror, and then you're like, you thought you were pretty cool of a person until you get in a relationship. You're like, oh, I got that flaw too. I got that flaw. Oh, that's wrong with me, and that's wrong with me. Oh, what? I'd rather be alone and be in delusion to think that I am a good person. You know what I mean?
I actually saw a quote and it was talking about like, when you're in a relationship, their happiness is not your responsibility.
Exactly.
Because a lot of problems that happen in relationships is, okay, you have two people and like a problem arises and you're like, okay, I want to make sure she's okay, or I want to make sure he's okay before even helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's my responsibility, and my only responsibility is to make sure that I'm happy, because if I'm happy,
Yeah.
things will go in the right direction. But if I'm not happy, something's wrong, and I need to direct this with my partner or with whatever the problem is in that moment.
And you can't really help anybody if you don't love yourself. And to me, that love for myself comes from from God loving me. And then I'm plugged into the source. The light is on. When I just disconnect from the source, that's when the old ugly comes out, right? It's not by my power, but his. But when you mentioned also adopting kids, and I thought, oh, if I could have had two dads growing up, that would have been so cool. Because I think about, even two moms, but I'm thinking because I did have my mom, and I'd say happy Father's Day to her too, because my dad was kind of sporadic in and out. But when people judge that as a bad thing, when there's a male or female couples that love each other, that want to have children, to me, I don't see what's wrong with that. That is more love. That child's getting love rather than the orphanage that my grandparents were living in.
Yeah, and that's another problem, is another big thing on why it's not federally legal for LGBT couples to adopt is the problem arises where if two gay people raise a child, they're gonna be brought up as gay. Now, to be honest, I don't understand where that logic came from, because
Because they
both
think
of
it's
my
a
parents are
choice.
straight.
They think it's a choice. That's why. Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
it's like, at the end of the day, when you have so many kids in foster care, or so many kids in the system or out of the system because for whatever reason, that's all that they think about. It's like, when you have two gay dads or two gay moms, it's like, oh, well, their son or their daughter isn't being raised right because they don't have that specific gender in their life. And
Ugh.
it's like, first of all, it takes a village
Yes,
to
it does. Oh, I was just gonna say the same thing.
it's like, you think that those are the only two people that they're going to come into contact for the rest of their life. First
Right.
of all. Second of all, obviously, not that nobody else wanted them, but obviously these two people worked extra hard to make sure that this individual or this family of children is loved. And
Yes.
that's when it comes to the foster care system, I thought that that's what the purpose was, is we created the system as like a lobby or a waiting room,
Mm-hmm.
and people come and go and taking children to go to a loving home.
Yes.
But when when individual hating people, angry people put their 2 cents into it, it's like, who are you to tell me that I can't raise a family? Who are you to tell me that I'm going to raise a family wrong? What is the wrong way? What is the right way? Because at the end of the day, if you believe a child growing up to be gay is wrong, you go and get a child and see how well that turns out, because you could be the most conservative, bread going people or whatever you see. There are kids who come out totally opposite than them.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to think of it as, like, everybody's different because God wants everybody different. He doesn't want anybody to be the same. So that's when you see, oh, you got all these gay people running around so crazy. We've been here all along. We have been here all along, and God has accepted us
Yes.
all along.
Loved you.
It's these, I don't know what people would call it, people who are like God, like Christian on the outside, but in the inside they have hate.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't think that they put the label on themselves. Cultural Christian, they call that maybe, or they
I
call
think
that.
so. I
Yeah,
think so.
they're cult. Yeah, they were raised that way, and they think that that's the label that they are, but they are not living and walking and really truly having a relationship. And with the Bible itself is dusty, because they're really
Yeah.
not diving in truly to what God says, right?
Yeah. And it's like, at the end of the day, like I said, God has supported us, loved us all along, because God doesn't make any mistakes. And it's the people that called themselves Christian or culturally Christian, those are the people who are at fault. not God,
Mm-hmm.
and not us. It's them.
And it's one person at a time. It's your responsibility where you're headed and how you live your life. Now there is a perception, and we'll close it out after this, but there is a perception that gay people are promiscuous and that they're having sex with everybody and it's just all about sex. But I want to challenge the heterosexuals of the world, because a lot of the heterosexuals that are judging the gay population, if they're following the like whatever judgment they're putting, if they're following the Bible, because I think that's the standard of what they're judging against, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to look at how many of those heterosexuals had sex with multiple partners, how many of those heterosexuals had sex before they got married, how many of those are still having sex. And to me, I am the worst of these sinners, quote unquote, but I have now, since in the last 3 years, lived a life of purity, and it has raised me to another spiritual level, I've noticed. And I didn't realize, like, the things of the world that I was trying to go for, whether it would be in stuff or with people, that caused me to only get to a certain level. So I guess I was just challenging the people that are heterosexual judgment on the gay community, because if you think about, like, the gay pride parade, yeah, it looks a little crazy, but so does a football game with people painting their faces, right?
The
and,
thing,
and idol worship of famous people at a concert, right? That's crazy too. So you cannot say, oh, they are wrong and we are right, because this is the norm.
mm-hmm. The thing that I would say is, don't look at it as like, because when it comes down to it, like, sexuality and gender and everything, it represents who we are, how we dress, how we talk, how we feel, all the stuff. And it's like, because I've gone to,
You can grab your cat if you want.
no, it's my mom. I'm on a podcast with my teacher. Meow, meow.
Meow, meow. Love it.
I'm sorry, my room is a mess.
It is a mess.
I'm sorry.
Hi,
Oh
Mom.
my Lord.
But hang on, we only have a couple minutes till she has
Okay.
somebody else.
All
Okay, as I was saying, I've been to 2 pride parades before in my life, and being there, yeah, you see crazy things.
Hey,
People-
there's a naked bike ride in the city of Chicago that's a little crazy as well.
Yeah, it's just, you have all these people, but those aren't things you see on a day-to-day basis. But when you go, at least when I was there, yeah, I was seeing a lot of things that I haven't seen before, but I didn't have to worry about how I looked, how I acted, what I said. I felt accepted because these were my people.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but it's like you said, with the football crap, or, the Cubs winning the World Series, people went crazy. People, filled the streets. We got we got the option of staying home from school because of the Cubs, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just, if all you look for is something to hate, like, if something to hate about somebody, you are just bringing yourself down a bad path, because we've got each other's backs. As a community, we have each other's backs, and I want people to look at the community that way.
Yeah.
And we love each
Acceptance.
other. We support each other. We accept each other. Yes. And at the end of the day, it's none of anybody's business who I kiss, who I love, who I start a family with. Mm-hmm. Because if you're so worried about my family, something is wrong with yours. And I just hope you figure that out. Mm-hmm. Because I know I'm going down the right path. If I was not supposed to be gay, or if I'm not supposed to be here right now in this very moment, I wouldn't.
Right.
It wouldn't happen. And kind of like what you were saying, the way that I think about God is he lays out options. I think of it. God doesn't control my life.
No.
We make our own choices. We have our own soul. And that's the whole point of us being here. But I know I'm supposed to be where I'm at, because even when I am alone, I don't feel alone. Yes. I feel like there's somebody there. Like, yes. I kind of think of it as the thing, I have him, I have all my angels above me, as long as I have them and as long as I always stay in that mindset, I don't care if you hate me, I don't care if you love me. I will always love my neighbor as myself.
Beautiful.
But like, for anybody watching, Christian or not, you just try to look at it from a different perspective.
All I want to do is disrupt your status quo thinking. And also for those that are also on the verge of suicide, please know that there is a God there that loves you. There are people that love you. And I hope that, I know 2020, the suicides have been up. And that's another reason why I wanted to do this, because I just wanted to communicate that God's love is real. And he's not judging us. It's not his finger pointing down on us in condemnation. And the reason the Levitical Law doesn't even exist for us anymore is because Jesus paid the price for that. He replaced that law. And all we have to do is receive him and have a relationship with him. And then as you go through life, God's going to deal with you on any issue of your life. He's going to deal with you. And so I love that you are so in love with people, despite the fact that you've been bullied so long. So let's close this out with a 3, 2, 1. And I love your recommendations. Okay, so 3 books you recommend?
Okay, so I have 5 Presidents by Clint Hill. I'm gonna save that one for the last one. My second one is just a Steve Jobs documentary. And my last one is Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong.
Oh,
I think Lowen. I got this.
You know, I'm getting me that book, because I know Sir Ken Robinson in that TED Talk talks about how we are brilliant at 90, like they do a brain scan of kindergartners and they're like 90% brilliant, genius level. And they go through school and they lose their brilliance by becoming educated. So it's interesting. And I think it's like when you were mentioning earlier, like become uneducated is really what makes you more brilliant. I mean, you know, in so many respects, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just like, it's things like talking about, not more of like political things yet, but it's just teaching like of all the things that aren't whitewashed. Basically.
I got you. Perfect. Okay, 2 TV shows.
So this one isn't a TV show. It's actually a video on YouTube. It's called The Egg.
Okay.
It'll be like one of the first things that pops up. But one that's actually a TV show just for, you know, fun and giggles is Grey's Anatomy.
Okay. I'll put both of those in the notes.
That actually talks about a lot of day-to-day issues when it comes to religion or just politics, race, ethnicity, stuff like that. Okay, good.
And the one habit to adopt.
One habit is stop trying to look for things that could go wrong.
Ooh, can you elaborate on that, please?
Especially coming out of 2020, we lived and are currently living day by day. When are we going to get the masks off? When can we go to the beach? When can I go to Six Flags? Stuff like that. Where we have to remember, me, my family, anybody who hasn't gotten COVID, we are the lucky people. We are lucky because people lost their loved ones, couldn't go to their funeral, stuff like that. And every day we kind of just thought, what's next? Try to take moments throughout your day to just be grateful that you are here. Even if you are having a crappy day at work, crappy day at school, crappy life, whatever, it's not all bad. And it's not all going to stay bad.
Gratitude will get you out of your funk every single time. Kerrie Ann, I'm so grateful for you, and I've enjoyed this time together. This has been such a blessing.
I know. I miss you.
But I'm excited. I'm going to point them to the direction of your podcast also, that episode, and the blog. So all right.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Have a good day.
Take care. Bye.
You too.